Unspoken Issues.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Unspoken Issues. It is I, Jesse Starcher, bringing you back into another discussion about a 1990s comic book. And we're kind of picking up where we last left off. Chris and I had a discussion a couple episodes ago about Image X Month. We are continuing to set those issues against each other. The first two that we did against each other, help me out here, I know was Savage Dragon 13, because that was the winner, and then it was up against who?
Shadowhawk number 0.
Yeah, the winner of that poll, the Unspoken Decade fans chose Savage Dragon number 13. So we had a good discussion, went a bit in depth on Image X Month, but we were like, you know what? We've got to continue the Image X Month, throwdown here. So we took all of the other 4 books and set them up against each other, and we finally got a poll working where it just makes it easier for us. No emojis involved. You pick your favorite, and we can do the tabulation a little bit easier. So we created what we call the Unspoken Issues Podcast Group Facebook page. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to join that group, you're more than welcome to. It's an open group. Join in and you can vote on these polls. We share them over on the Unspoken Decade Facebook page, but hey, it's easier if you join the group. You can vote a little bit easier. You pick your favorite. So we threw all 4 the rest of these books up against each other. Chris Armstrong, do you remember what 4 we have?
Yeah, the remaining 4 were Youngblood, number 9, which was a Jim Valentino. He swapped with Liefeld. So Liefeld did his Shadowhawk, and then Valentino did Youngblood for him. Then Wildcats, number 14, which it was Eric Larson, who had swapped with Jim Lee. And then the other 2, Cyberforce, number 8, that Todd McFarlane penciled. And I believe Spawn number 25 was the other issue, and that was Mark Silvestri taking on Spawn for an issue.
That's right. And do you recall who won?
It went back and forth, right? It was Youngblood was leading for a while, and then I think when we capped it, Wildcats was ahead.
By 1 single vote.
But since then, hasn't something else taken this?
There is a tie.
Okay.
Right now, there is a tie between Spawn 25 and Wildcats number 14. We closed it on Wednesday. Yeah. Wildcats 14 was in the lead. I got in there. I left a message. I said, folks, it's over. Eric Larson wins. But somebody decided to get in there and get their 2 cents in, which is fine. That's fine. There's a tie at the top, but that was after the race was called. I'm sorry. Yep. Your horse can't come in and tie after the finish line. So Image X Month, we talked about it on the previous episode. Ladies and gentlemen, go check out, I think it was episode 25, where we talked about how Image X Month came about, a lot of what Rob Liefeld mentioned on his podcast, things like that. I think we'll go ahead, Chris, and just kind of talk about briefly the other 3 issues. We'll not go too in depth, but I know you said you've read them all. I'm pretty certain I read them at some point, just not recently.
So yeah, some of these I had never read, I don't think. I had Youngblood and Cyberforce and Wildcats all in my collection. I know I'd read Wildcats before. I'm not sure I'd read these, but Youngblood, Valentino took over and wrote and did the penciling. Somebody had commented on the poll, like, I forget who it was, but they said, vote Valentino because it sucks or something like that.
Chris Bailey, the operator of the superhero satellite chimed in, and I don't. So we heard about the controversy on the Robservations podcast about how nobody wanted to choose Valentino. He must have wanted to see us like rip into it or something.
Maybe. I mean, it does kind of suck. It's not like terrible, but there's like no action. It's just an issue basically about Bad Rock, where he's got a movie deal or an endorsement deal or something in place. And so it's all about him going to Hollywood and like trying to meeting with the director who's like a combination of like Scorsese and Francis Ford Coppola and Lucas and Spielberg. Let me see. His name is Mr. George Spieloppa.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So I guess it's supposed to be Lucas, Spielberg, and Coppola.
Very good.
And he puts his hands in the cement outside, the theater and everything. And really, it's just kind of a lot of jokes, kind of jokey. There's no like action stuff going on, so nothing at all like what a Youngblood comic is really like. But not terrible. Not one of my favorite Youngblood issues. But yeah, that was his contribution to Youngblood. And then Cyberforce was McFarlane, and it might be one of the last comics that McFarlane ever actually penciled. I mean, he was at a point where he wasn't really doing Spawn, I don't think, monthly anymore.
Oh, wow.
But it was actually written by Eric Silvestri, who I think was the writer of Cyberforce anyway. So it kind of, I guess, has the tone of a Cyberforce comic. It just has McFarlane's art. And the art is really cool. It's kind of vintage McFarlane, maybe not like when he was at his peak, which would probably have been like the Spider-Man era and the early Spawn issues.
I was just going to say, out of 15 votes, it got one single solitary vote. That was our good buddy Mark Radulich from the Radulich Broadcasting Network. And
I mean, McFarlane, for whatever flaws he may have, like, it's always really interesting looking. Like anything that he does, layouts are always really kind of cool looking, stuff like that. But yeah, kind of a gruesome, bloody, issue. The plot was basically like a shape-shifting creature that Cyberforce was hunting down, and honestly, I don't remember much about it. It's been a week since I read it, and I've already kind of forgotten what goes on in it. But it was all right. And then Spawn 25, I actually just read that today. But yeah, that's one that I was interested in, especially because Liefeld kind of talked it up on the podcast that he did about Image X Month, and he kind of referenced how Silvestri is the one they all kind of regard as the best artist in the bunch, and him doing this Spawn issue, he was kind of tapping into a lot of supernatural type stuff, and that was kind of the direction Silvestri and Top Cow went in after that, like with The Darkness and Witchblade and Ascension, which was a David Finch book that he did early on, stuff like that. So it was interesting. It was one that was also written by, I think, McFarlane, and then Silvestri just did the art. So they kind of just swapped artists with Cyberforce and Spawn. The main writer was still on each book, and they just had a different look for the art. The Spawn issue, it was an anniversary issue, 25. So it was kind of a big deal, I guess, that Silvestri was doing that one. But it was a part of an ongoing storyline. Like, there were references to stuff that had been going on in the book and to future events and stuff like that. So it was just kind of he just basically brought Silvestri in, and he kind of did the standard monthly issue. It wasn't like a lot of these others that were kind of like standalone stuff.
Yeah. So, speaking of standalone, we get to our winner, which is Wildcats number 14, written and drawn by Eric Larson. I know I was picking up Wildcats, Savage Dragon. Wildcats, I had a run from, oh my goodness, I want to say issue 1 all the way up through the 30s, I want to say. I don't have anything else to kind of add to what you've already talked about with the other books. Did you have anything to say about Wildcats 14 before we get into the synopsis and what went on?
Like I had said last time, we did an X Month book. I was not into comics when this came out. There was that maybe year and a half where I was kind of out of the scene for a while, and that's when the Image X Month happened, and it would have blown my mind if I had been, reading these when they came out. That would have been a super big deal for me. But yeah, Larson, I really like him having a chance to put his spin on the Wildcats character is like a really cool thing.
Yeah. Wait. Before we get into the synopsis of this issue, I need to jump in here and tell you all that I just figured something out. If you head to getamazonmusic.com/W2M network, you can get a free 30-day trial where you can check out over 70 million songs. That's getamazonmusic.com/W2M network for that free 30-day trial. But that's not what I stumbled on. While you have that 30-day trial, you can check out the Wildcats fight song. Wait. What? Oh, that's the University of Kentucky Wildcats fight song. On U of K by the University of Kentucky Marching Band. I know of at least one guy on this podcast that would dig that. Anyway, back to the show. So Wildcats 14 hits the shelves according to Mike's Amazing World of Comics on sale date of October 3rd, 1994. Like I said, written and drawn by Eric Larson. If you're listening to this podcast, you're like, who in the world are the Wildcats? Yeah. Who in the world are Freak Force? Who is Mighty Man? I'm going to run down as quick as I possibly can some quick notes from the Wikipedia on who these teams and the team members are. Starting with what I consider the leader, I say leader in quotes. They said team leader and advisor of the Wildcats, which was Lord Imp. He was short in stature. Oh my goodness! I know I had like all the races and everything listed here because when you jump into Wildcats, first off, if you're picking up that series initially, there's this war between I think something called the Damonites and there's the Cherubim. There's all sorts of crazy stuff going on. So Lord Imp is kind of like entrenched in that, puts a team together called the Wildcats to kind of battle this Damonite threat. Am I right there?
That sounds right.
Okay, sounds right. As long as it sounds right, I'll double check myself when I edit this. But yeah, you rarely saw him go out into the field. He was usually the guy behind the scenes. He's kind of like the Charlie of Charlie's Angels. That's probably the best way that I could put it. Okay, now for the field general, an android by the name of Spartan, that's consciousness can be downloaded to other android bodies if it sustains too much damage. His powers are some incredible strength, endurance, capable of flight, some other crazy stuff here in regards to plasma blasts. So he's also able to interface with electronic systems, typical android stuff. Then we have Grifter. We talked about Grifter already in Savage Dragon 13, former government operative, skilled marksman, and hand-to-hand combatant. Now, we talked about on the Savage Dragon 13 episode, like, does Grifter have powers? And we found out that he does. But what the wiki said is that he actually has turned them off. So somehow he was taught how to turn his gen active powers on and off. He can switch anytime he wants to. He just prefers to have them off, apparently. Then we have Voodoo, a telepathic human cherubim damonite hybrid.
And stripper.
Yeah, exotic dancer, sir. That was my next note. Exotic dancer. From what I know, okay, we're really early on in the Wildcat series here. Like I said, we're at issue 14.
She's able to like exercise Damonites who have like possessed people and stuff like that, and like sense Damonites. But as far as other powers outside of that, I'm not sure what else she can do. Okay,
and this is issue 14. Like I said, it's early on in the run, so there may not be too much there. Then we have Zealot, sword wielding Coda assassin. That's pretty much all you need to know there. She's one tough lady. Then we have Maul, a human titanthrope hybrid capable of increasing his size and mass at the cost of reasoning capability. To put it simply, the bigger he gets, the dumber he gets. That's just about as simple as you can get there. We have Warblade, who is referred to as T2 in this issue, which is hilarious. Just imagine a dude that has malleable metal for hands. So a lot of his...
Yeah, I think he was heavily inspired by the T-1000.
Yeah, very much a liquid metal. He can shape him. They say he can shape himself into a variety of bladed weapons and sharp objects. I've never seen him do it to himself. It's always
his hands, is from what I can remember.
And then we have Void. Void has the ability to see the future and teleport herself and others to anywhere on Earth due to her absorption of an orb of power. So there you go. The Wildcats: Lord Imp, Spartan, Grifter, Voodoo, Zealot, Maul, Warblade, and Void. Chris Armstrong, Wildcats. Anything you want to add?
Of course, Wildcats most famous probably for the amazing opening theme song to their cartoon from the night, which I believe we played on the last time we did a Wildcats episode where they crossed over with Youngblood a while back in the early days of the Unspoken issues.
That's right.
Like I said, I was really into the early issues, and then I got out of comics for a while. When I got back, I never really I actually read like Joe Casey did a Wildcats run late in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was really good. That first miniseries of Wildcats, it's a really great, like, 4-issue, like, action-packed, kind of like a 90s action movie, like, superhero. It reads like a 90s action movie. It's really, really cool.
That's cool. All right. Well, one of the central characters in this issue is Mighty Man, and I didn't remember a whole lot about Mighty Man from my my original reading of the Savage Dragon. I knew what he looked like, this blonde-haired, super heroic-looking being with some very, very, he's very powerful. But what I learned is that Mighty Man's actually an entity that kind of possesses a host body. When the original host passes on, that power gets passed on to another person. So Mighty Man, the entity of Mighty Man, got passed down to Nurse Samantha Stevens. Now, you mentioned Samantha Stevens. She was in Savage Dragon issue 13, right?
Yeah.
She was just there for like a quick second.
Right.
But
in the original Savage Dragon series, she was the nurse in Dragon's hospital. He wakes up in a burning field or whatever. He's in a hospital for a while when he first wakes up. And I think she's actually the one who named him Dragon.
Okay.
And then later on in the series, she gets the Mighty Man powers.
The powers are activated when you tap your wrists together. Not negabands or it's just your wrists, apparently. I made sure. I was like, are we talking bracelets here? No, it's wrists. You just tap your wrists together and then you become Mighty Man. So Samantha Stevens, definitely an interesting juxtaposition when you think about that. And that comes into play in this issue. Yeah, godlike powers, flight, and super strength. So there's Mighty Man. Now, Freak Force, baby. Freak Force. Part of a failed program through the Chicago Police Department, Freak Force came together. And we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 members of Freak Force. We got Hortus, who is a young girl who was kept in her parents' basement due to her horrific appearance with her spike-covered body. Rapture, the electricity-throwing former prostitute who is currently romantically involved with the Savage Dragon. Then we have Barbaric, a large, muscle-bound, red fur-covered, yellow-haired Native American teenager, if I remember correctly. He's pretty young, right? Thought he was
he was, I think him and Ricochet were both teenagers, I believe. Right around 20, like college age.
Okay. Then we have Dart, who I believe is the leader of Freak Force. She's a lethally accurate dart-throwing vigilante from Detroit. And then we have Super Patriot, who's been around for a while. He's a cybernetically enhanced World War II soldier. And then we have Ricochet. You mentioned Ricochet. She's able to bounce off most surfaces without injury to herself, has natural resistance, and is fortified by a specially designed costume. So there is Freak Force for you, okay? So I had to get the introductions out of the way because my synopsis doesn't go that in-depth on who all these So anything to say about Freak Force before I hop into what happens in the book?
I liked that Freak Force series. Like you said, they started out in Savage Dragon. The police force was trying to get Dragon more superpowered help because it was such a big, burden on him and whatnot. And eventually they kind of split off to do their own thing. I think they were kind of like bounty hunters, basically. And they had a cool book that ran for probably 20 issues or so.
Yeah.
That I've intended to go back and read through, but I never really have. I read them when I was younger, but I haven't reread them, as an adult. But that's a cool, cast of characters.
I remember Hortus, the introduction to that character through Savage Dragon, where I think the parents are dead upstairs. You're like,
I believe they had killed themselves.
Yep, I think you're right.
And left her chained in the basement because they thought she was like a monster.
Yeah, which what a horrific introduction to a character. She's like, Mom, Dad, and they're dead upstairs. And I think Dragon's coming down there. But anyway, okay. Well, we open with the Wildcats just defeating another Damonite baddie and wondering just when Lord Imp is going to give them a break. He offers them to stay at an island he owns in the Caribbean. And I just want to throw out, the fact that we get the editor, which I'm sure is Eric Larson, hopping in here and giving us every explanation for every abbreviation possible.
Yeah, that was a nice touch.
While the team is packing their bags, Maul hears of a friend by the name of Margot who has been gravely injured during a battle that involved Mighty Man. Blaming Mighty Man for not saving his friend, Maul heads to Chicago to confront him. Finding Mighty Man at Margot's bedside, Maul attacks him out of rage, punching him through the hospital wall. That's, again, a Eric Larson special right there. Unexpectedly, Mighty Man fights Maul off, causing Maul to grow bigger, which in turn diminishes his mental capacity. As the battle intensifies, Mighty Man's friends show up, Freak Force. But before they can engage Maul, the Wildcats appear, even the odds, and an all-out assault begins for almost 4 pages. As Grifter tries to deal with Hortus, He is stopped by a giant green hand belonging to the Savage Dragon. Since both recognized each other from the events of Savage Dragon 13, which is kind of interesting that this one won, and we're kind of pretty much continuing the, at least a little bit of continuity from our episode about Savage Dragon 13. Since both recognize each other from the events of Savage Dragon 13, Dragon asks that Grifter calls team off as he believes there's been a misunderstanding, as it always happens between two superhero teams. However, there is no stopping Maul until Mighty Man realizes transforming into their human form, the dainty Nurse Stevens, they realize they have a chance to convince Maul to calm down, which is successful. Both teams apologize and shake hands, while Maul goes to check on Margot, who tells him it was not Mighty Man's fault after all. Fast forward a day or so, and both teams, along with the Savage Dragon, are drinking it up on M's Caribbean island. So, yeah, that's Savage Dragon 14, or Savage Dragon 14, Wildcats 14 in a nutshell. As you can tell, I'm rightfully confused since this is Eric Larson taking his characters and putting them in a Wildcats book. I mean, we can touch on it. I don't know if you had a chance to read it, but Eric Larson talks about Image X Month.
Like a full-page letter from Larson, basically, about it.
Yeah, and cat calls, so...
Yeah. Didn't he have, I think in the letters page of the Dragon issue, he has like a couple paragraphs about it, but none of the other issues have like any comments from the creators about the issues, I don't think.
Yeah.
Maybe Liefeld did in his Shadowhawk issue, I can't remember, but...
Well, one of the things that I took out from just what he was discussing there, because he lays it all out there about how the concept came to him. He was just going at it with Savage Dragon, trying to get his 100 consecutive issues done when somebody says, hey, what about this?
He was kind of like, well, this is like the opposite of what I want to do. Because I just want to do my own book.
Yeah. So we know later that Eric Larson is not happy with the fact that he had to do the issue and had to participate in Image X Month and had to give Jim Lee the reins, but to Savage Dragon for that one issue. But you can tell he's kind of walking the line to be like, well, I can't wait to get into this book, but he's like, there's such a history. The one reason that he does just one character usually is he has a hard time keeping the uniform straight of a team book. So right. He's obviously excited about doing the issue, but he doesn't know how well it's going to come off. So what do you think of the book, man? What's your thoughts here on Wildcats number 14?
I'm just going to go ahead on a limb and say this is far and away the best Image X Month book. Which is obviously, I'm inclined to think that because I'm a big Eric Larson fan. This is very much in the style of a Savage Dragon issue. A lot of big, bombastic characters, fighting it out. Classic Eric Larson style. He does a good job with the Wildcats characters or whatever. It's kind of weird that he complains about, like, I don't like doing team books because of all these different characters, all these different looks.
Yeah.
But, like, Savage Dragon, there's, like, a million different looking freaks and like super freaks in all those early issues. But I guess when he's coming up with them all on his own, it's kind of a different thing maybe. But but yeah, I feel like this is kind of the peak of Eric Larson as an artist anyway, like pretty much from around the time the Savage Dragon regular series started up through, I think around issue 75 is when he kind of switched to almost into a different continuity where like Dragon went to another world and stuff. So pretty much those early like first 50 to 60 issues of Savage Dragon is kind of my favorite as far as his art and everything. So this is right in the middle of all that. But yeah, seeing him draw Maul he's kind of a perfect character for Eric Larson.
Oh man, no kidding. No kidding. And of course the opening page is Maul letting loose on a big Damonite bad guy with this huge punch. And I actually said it on the Claremont to Claremont podcast because we did a episode of Excalibur. It was Heir Apparent, which is this one shot that Excalibur did, okay? The way that they did it, there was like 7 chapters, one for almost each member of Excalibur to go off and do their own thing, written and drawn by different writers and artists. Eric Larson got a shot at one with Captain Britain. So, of course, it's Captain Britain versus this the T-100 Airwalker looking thing. And it's right up Larson's alley because all that Captain Britain can do is just punch this guy usually. And they're flying through walls and all this other stuff. So that's Larson said that's what he likes to do. And it is no wonder that he picked Maul to center this story around.
Yeah.
I mean, really, this is right in his wheelhouse. As far as I could tell, I like your comment about how this is probably by far and away the best Image X book. Everything almost kind of feels genuine. He didn't like really depart horribly from the Wildcats team and what we expected with their attitudes. There wasn't really anything there. What I should qualify that with is that he didn't dive into it too much. He just kind of dabbled his toe in the characters themselves. It's not like Eric Larson was like, okay, I want to make sure I get the character of Spartan right. Spartan doesn't do anything in here except fight a couple panels and stand.
Yeah. As a contrast to the Savage Dragon issue, it is much more focused on Wildcats, whereas like the Savage Dragon issue is kind of like a grifter comic with Savage Dragon shows up for a few pages.
Yeah.
Whereas this, he can't focus on every character. There's, 7, 8 Wildcats, but
and it's got to be done in one issue too.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So Maul is kind of the centerpiece, but like all of the Wildcats show up and get to do their thing or whatever. He uses his own characters in Freak Force to kind of like play off of them or whatever, but he gives plenty of spotlight to the actual Wildcats characters instead of just focusing on his own, characters. I guess I'm going to pick a favorite panel, and it would be the Spartan Super Patriot mashup where they're fighting each other, and Spartan is just getting obliterated basically by all these guns and stuff that are shooting off of Super Patriot. Super Patriot's like a cyborg basically, and so basically any part of his arms or legs, like a gun can just like pop up out of it. So he's got all these guns firing away on Spartan, who's like his eyeballs hanging out, and he's still throwing punches and stuff. And that's probably my favorite the panel of the book.
So there was a couple in here I wanted to pick from. Obviously, the splash page with Maul flying away on, I don't know if I've ever seen that vehicle before, but that feels like Kirby.
For sure. Yeah. I don't know what that thing is. Like, it doesn't show up in any other part of the comic. I don't know if that's like a Wildcats vehicle that they normally tool around on or whatever, but it looks like something Orion would be flying around, the DC New Gods character.
Yep.
So that may be a direct like swipe of a Kirby image or something. I'm not sure.
So yeah, it evokes Kirby so much. And you see little Vanguard's down there, just flying around. He's got a little, what's going on? I'm trying to think of what my panel was now. Oh my goodness. You can't short the splash page with Maul just punching Mighty Man through a freaking wall. That was pretty insane.
Yeah, that's a full page splash.
And we got the 2-pager with the Wildcats show up. I know I had one here. Oh, I know what it was. It's got to be the beach scene where you where you can see that Rapture is completely topless.
She's not shy.
No, she is not. Okay.
Former Lady of the Night Rapture.
There's a lot that happens actually on that final page. Savage Dragon and Rapture decide that they're going to take things to the next level, because she says, "You tired of this taking it slow crap?" And he says, "Yep." So maybe that's a big moment in their relationship. But obviously, Dragon being a cop probably didn't want to get too involved with a Lady of the Night. And then we have the interesting discussion between Nurse Samantha Stevens and Jeremy Stone Mall, where it's like she kind of asks him out on a date,
right?
But then it's like you turn into
a guy. That's basically his response.
Yeah, and again, and she's kind of upset about that. I imagine that's probably explored a lot.
I remember there was an issue, I think, of Savage Dragon where, this was before it was revealed that who she was, because it was a mystery for a while who Mighty Man, what his secret identity was. But a girl and him were talking on the roof of a building in Chicago, and she basically like made a pass at him. And this was somebody who was like a friend of Nurse Stevens. Like, she knew that who she was. She like reacted really poorly. Like, "What are you doing?" And the girl was like, "Well, look at you. Like, you've got the body of a Greek god."
Oh, awkwardness.
Yeah.
Abounds. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm taking, Maul versus Mighty Man Through the Wall. That's just Eric Larson all over, and it's fantastic. It shows the power of Maul and Mighty Man. He's no slouch himself, but you could tell he's reeling from the blow there. So a good book. It was fun. It was quick. You get in, you get out. You watch two of your favorite teams kind of face off, and then Savage Dragon showing up to kind of quell things down. And everybody lives happily ever after on a Caribbean island. So. Do you got a favorite Wildcat?
Probably Grifter, which is kind of the easy answer, I guess, because everybody's favorite, I think, is Grifter, or was at that time. Although, honestly, in those days, I'll bet Warblade was probably my favorite.
No kidding.
Because, a lot of those Image teams had like a Wolverine stand-in, and Warblade was the Wildcats version. But yeah, he was really cool with like the super T2 claws, basically. Mm-hmm. So now it's probably Grifter, but back then I'll bet Warblade was probably my favorite.
Yeah, Cold Cash. The Grifter was probably mine. He was all over the place too. I mean, you could usually catch him in a ton of books. I remember Kindred. What was the Wildcats trilogy? Yep, Backlash. So I go with Grifter. All right, well then, give me your favorite Freak Force member.
That's a tougher question because I liked all those characters as part of the Savage Dragon book. Probably Super Patriot. He's a character who's had his own series a few times, like mini-series and stuff. So yeah, I think it's pretty easily Super Patriot. Although I like most of those other characters, it's Super Patriot.
So I think we've discovered here on the Unspoken Issues podcast that Chris and I like guns. If there's a character with guns, because I like the Super Patriot as well. Does he have a link to Die Hard?
Yes. Okay. Super Patriot was part of a group called the Allies, which was like a World War II era, kind of like the Invaders for Marvel, but in the Extreme universe or whatever. It was in Youngblood Strike File 1 through 3. There was a story that Rob Liefeld did, which was really cool, where Die Hard and Glory and Super Patriot were revealed to be like a team in the World War II era together.
Okay.
So like Super Patriot obviously is a cyborg. Die Hard eventually becomes kind of a cyborg, and Glory is like an immortal, kind of like a Wonder Woman type. So
okay.
There's an ad in the back of this issue for Freak Force number 9 where Cyber Force invades Freak Force. So
look out!
Freak Force has another battle on their hands this month, apparently. It says on sale now, so another Freak Force issue I've got to track down because I don't have a complete run of that. I've got a handful of them, but I don't have them all. But so yeah, they were getting a lot of action that month.
Well, that's pretty cool. I guess. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, to hop into plugs here. Number one, go check out the Unspoken Decade Facebook page. Interact with us. We got usually what we're doing over there is we're posting some covers and brief explanations on issues of comics from the 1990s. The UnspokenDecade.com, which is your one-stop shop for all 90s comic book wanderings there. We got a lot of articles up there. Chris and I have contributed to articles on there, but we know Simba fans able to crank out these things like a madman. Then, hop over to the Unspoken Issues podcast group as well. We're usually throwing up polls. Right now, we got one live. I don't know if it's going to stay live by the time you hear this, but I would imagine you might be able to at least go over there and check it out.
We got a poll active right now for most likely our next episode, which is going to be a focus on the 2099 Marvel. So it's Spider-Man 2099, Punisher 2099, Doom 2099, and X-Men 2099. So not Ravage. He is not included in the poll.
Sorry, Evan.
There's been some rumblings about that. Apologies. When I designed the poll, I initially was going to use the first 4 launched titles for 2099, which Ravage would have been included, but then I thought nobody likes Ravage, so I'm going to put X-Men in there instead because that was a book that I felt like was more popular, back in those days. So
okay, well,
apologies to the Ravage fans. I know there's a few of them out there.
Right now, Doom 2099 is winning at least by 2 votes from the next up and comer there, so can still swing because we got 30 members in that group, and there's 4, 6, 8, 9 people that have voted. So yeah, if you want your voice heard, feel free to go over there. Did we have any comments or anything on this poll? We already talked about Chris Bailey of the Superhero Satellite. and his contribution. I think I went in there and talked about when it was being called. I was just going to say a lot of love for the cover of Spawn there. It had at least a like and a love there, but didn't come out the winner. Let me go over to the Unspoken Decade. I don't know. It was either you, me. No, it's Dean Compton. Dean Compton says, "Come on, young blood number 9." It took a while to get there, but yeah, we found it. Didn't get it though, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, fell short by a vote. So anyway, yeah, check out the Unspoken Decade Facebook page. Check out the Unspoken Issues podcast Facebook group, and of course, the UnspokenDecade.com. Did someone say UnspokenDecade.com? There's lots of great articles over there, and when I think writing, I think it would be a good time to plug a sponsor of the W2M network, and that is Grammarly. For you, the listeners of Unspoken Issues, Grammarly is offering a free download of the Grammarly software. Grammarly's AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, and spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. To download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2M network. Again, that's getgrammarly.com/W2M network to download Grammarly for free. Now, let's get on with the plugs. Thanks to W2Mnet.com for hosting the podcast. And of course, shout out to the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. If you wish to follow me, you can do so at Stiznarkey. Chris Armstrong, please go ahead and do your plug, sir.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at BrodyMan34, which is mostly just covers of books and comics I'm reading and, lists of the movies I'm watching.
Okay.
So no interaction. Don't speak to me on there, but you can look at what I'm into.
We're going to be on the airwaves again here. This is the 27th episode, so we'll be on the airwaves sometime again here shortly. Just like I said, go and vote, ladies and gentlemen. Let us know what you want us to talk about, and yeah, keep an eye on those polls. So for Chris Armstrong, I'm Jesse Starcher. We'll be talking to you again soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye.